Without further ado, we'll start a conversation. So I'm Bell Harry. I'm an editor, a founding editor and writer at SWS. And I came across you two incredibly brilliant, fantastic women, Belinda and Annie. Would you like to introduce yourself and give us a little background about why we're here today? We might kick off with you, Belinda.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you for having me and Annie. But basically, I am working in UK, and I have an Instagram account and now a community interest company called Women in Boat Building. And it was set up to support and connect and hopefully inspire women that work hands-on in a boatyard. And I started it when I was working at Spirit Yachts. So I was a finisher in the yard at Spirit Yachts. Which is based in Ipswich. It's my local boatyard, and I just loved working there, but there weren't that many women there with me. When I started, there was only one other woman there, and we didn't really have that much to do with each other because she was off in one corner and I was in a different department. And it was a very different life to the life I'd had at home, because I'd pre-children I was working in the film industry, and then I had quite a few years at home with the kids, and so then I just went into the boatyard just to get as a way to get back into work. And so I was working in this very male dominated environment, absolutely loving it, but wondering where all the women were. So it started off as an Instagram account.
So tell us about Spirit, where you were working, Spirit Yachts. How many people were there? What were they doing? What were they building?
Spirit Yachts, if you don't know them, basically the best way to describe it is they build James Bond's yacht. So beautiful, modern, classic wooden boats. So I'm very lucky that it was my local boatyard, really. So these boats are absolutely amazing. At the time when I joined, we were building the 111. So it's called Geist, Geist, and it's just an absolutely stunning boat. So being a part of that team was amazing in itself. The craftsmanship was incredible, and I was a finisher, so I was doing the sanding and the varnishing and all the prep work. So it was, hands-on in the boatyard, getting filthy, and I absolutely loved it. All my life I've looked after boats and love the physicality and the craftsmanship, and just seeing these beautiful boats being built was amazing. So I love being in the boatyard.
How many people were working on that particular project?
Probably about 15 full-time. We're building that boat, but in the boatyard, there were other boats. There was 72 foot, 40 foot. There was other boats. It's a huge yard, and it's all wood. So incredible boats being built. So it was a busy yard. Maybe 60 people working in there, and there's again
two women.
Just two women working on the boats, and a couple of lovely ladies that were constantly going around sweeping the floor as well. So, but it's a very, as most boatyards are, lots of boatyards only have one woman there. If that's, lots of them don't have any. But it's just a very male environment, which is, there's amazing things about it. There are, some amazing people building boats, and a lot of them are incredibly supportive.
Circle back to that. So I'm in Australia. It's 10 p.m. You're in the UK, it's noon. And yes. Where are you, Annie? Who are you and where are you? Tell us.
Well, it's currently 5 a.m. bright and early where I am, which is in Costa Rica. And right now I'm currently at the Sail Cargo Boatyard working with their team here. But a little bit about me and how Belinda and I got connected is that I am actually currently on a year-long fellowship journey that's funded by the Thomas J. Watson Fellowship, which essentially gives recent college graduates the opportunity to do independent exploration across the globe. And the big catch is that you can't come back to the United States and you have to keep traveling for the entire year. But the project that I proposed to study was gender inclusion in the maritime economy and in the blue economy. So Belinda and I got connected via Instagram, Trusty Women in Boat Building Instagram. And since then, we have been, I've passed the past 3 months in the UK working with Women in Boat Building and the Lyme Regis Boat Building Academy and a smattering of other folks, including the Greenwich Maritime Museum, to really highlight the work of women in this field.
And what have you learned, Annie?
Oh, I feel like this is the big, I almost every time a Watson fellow goes on their exploration, they always come back with more questions than answers because you're exposed to such a wide dearth of problems, of amazing people, of new projects and innovations in the industry. One thing I think Belinda and I can both agree on is that there does need to be better marketing coverage of the women who have been in the boating world and who are currently in the boating world. So that's what we really attempted to do with our Women in Boat Building, our British Boat Builder Tour series. But no, I think there's constantly more to learn, and I'm looking forward to delving into the dynamics of gender and this really, passionate part of my life that I love, which is boating.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because even just women in sailing, full stop. I'm constantly trying to get more and more people into sailing, into racing. Classic boats or plastic boats, I don't mind. Everyone can just more. And it's so interesting because there's no sign that says women excluded, women not welcome here. So what, in both of your opinions, what do you think? Why do we have these limitations? What changes are you guys seeing? It's such a huge and exciting subject, and let's sort of dig into there, Belinda.
Well, I think, as you rightly say, sailing and the whole maritime industry is a little bit backwards, and it's been so hugely male dominated for so many years. And I think, they're playing catch up. So I think it's getting better. Why? I guess maybe it's something to do with the fact that sailing traditionally, it was something that you went away and did, and actually women never had the flexibility didn't often have the flexibility to go away and do it. And it is also all consuming. Certainly I think one of the challenges, I think, for women with continuing being sailors is that actually there's a lot of engineering and you need a lot of practical skills to look after boats, and actually maybe that's one of the things that has historically put women off doing the sailing and doing the racing, because it's not just about stepping on board a boat, is it? It's about looking after it as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I just think actually having the practical skills is so hugely important. That's one of my theories.
Well, and just the comfort factor. In another life, I worked for a flotilla company. So it was just constantly managing 30, 40, 50 boats, tying them up, working with them, whether, it was just, so you were just like handling them like horses, they're just, you're getting comfortable, moving, tying, looking after boats. It's, and what about you? Oh, sorry.
That's what I was going to say. There's lots of other factors about boats. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the Magenta Project. They're currently got a survey asking, in women's opinion, whether the design of boats has had an effect on whether or not women are enjoying sailing. And I think, especially for dinghies, that's a huge fact, actually. Most dinghies are designed around, the male physique rather than the female physique. As a dinghy sailor, I definitely felt there were limitations in terms of what my options were. So I think that's, there's so many different elements that are a result of years of just, being focused on men.
So as a boat builder, how would you redesign a dinghy to suit women?
Well, I think it's the average woman's size and scale, actually. Lots of women now sail laser radials, and I'm not very small, but I'm like 5'5", but I find the whole laser hull just so uncomfortable and big and cumbersome. So I just think the scale of the dinghies a lot of the time is not right. I'm sure lots of women will disagree with me, but that's my personal opinion.
Annie, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think it's similar to kind of the big movement we've seen around women in STEM or, women in coding. I come from Seattle, where STEM is a huge part of the conversation. And I do really think there is a lack of exposure, if you don't see a lot of people who look like you in a field, you're more hesitant to engage with it. And I know me personally, I only got involved in not boat building, pardon me, but in, boating and in the marine world because my dad had a deep love for it. So I was exposed at an early age, and that made me feel very comfortable and competent when it came time to try new things, such as joining, a sail laser racing team or doing a big boat trip or even applying for this fellowship. And so I really do think if you can get a high enough capacity of women in the industry, or other groups of people that would make you feel comfortable being seen and being heard in that environment, that's a great step forward in actually keeping, but more importantly, retaining people, because retaining people is the hardest part. And with some of the sailmakers and boat builders who I've talked to on our British Boat Builders tour, a lot of them mentioned in the work environment that having a flexible work schedule is incredibly important, as a lot of the burdens of childcare fall onto predominantly women. And so a lot of yards who had retained a lot of women and had really great gender diversity had flexible work hours. And guess what? They were still producing the exact same amount of work on schedule, same quality. So I think that's a big thing. And then in the US, our maternity leave is quite different than I think you have in Australia and in the UK. Ours is less good. And I think that's also a crucial part of keeping people and making them feel supported in their jobs, whether that's professional sailing or boat building.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the concept of what you're sort of talking about there is that the industry almost needing a sort of a PR campaign or a storytelling, which is what you guys have done. And I'll jump into the films that you've made in a moment. But just that, I mean, if she can see it, she can be it. We're coming out with all the cliches tonight, but being able to see those pathways and those entry points is super, super important. And so with these films, it's interesting that you have a background in film, Belinda. Did you set out how did you and Annie, I mean, obviously, did Annie get in touch with you via Instagram, or was that
Yeah. So basically, Annie got in touch via Women in Boat Building, which is the Instagram account that I started about 3 years ago when I was in the boatyard, to just find some friends that were as bonkers working on boats as me. So, and it's sort of grown from there. So Annie found me on the Women in Boat Building Instagram account, and we got chatting. The Instagram account has largely done sort of career focuses on other women. More recently, basically talking about the career path, as you said, the whole if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I've interviewed pretty much more than 50 women about their own career paths around the world, and shared stories. In some of them, the last one I did last week was Honey, who's 17, who is doing a boat building course, and she's already worked in a boatyard for a whole year. She started when she was 16, so she's incredible, up to career changes at like 50. And so there's no bad time to start being a boat builder. So all these career stories have been fascinating to do, and they're all on my Instagram account to read. But it was all focused on the career stories. And so when Annie approached me, what I really wanted to do was create some content of women actually working in the yards, not just talking about it. And actually the focus is on what are you doing on that day? Annie had 3 weeks, so she rocked up at the boatyard. What exactly are you working on in that yard on that day? So it's a snapshot of what women are working on in the yard in August this summer. So we've got it as a historical, this is what women are doing. These are the tools you're using. These are the materials, this is what you're building. Just as a whole, actually normalizing women in boatyards using tools, making things and talking about it, not talking about their gender. I think that was what we really wanted to do, because we'd done lots of talking about what it's like being a woman in your career path. We just wanted to say, you know what, actually all women in boat building, they just want to be boat builders. At some point we will ditch women in boat building, but we're not quite there yet. At the moment we still need to talk about the fact that we're women. They all just want to be boat builders. So what are you doing as a boat builder, which is why we called it the Boat Builders Tour as well. We only had one boatyard, didn't we, Annie, that didn't quite realize that it was about women.
Yeah, and that was a little like, oh, sorry team.
Yeah. Like, thank you so much. Not convinced you qualify, but yeah, anyway, we should be inclusive. It's a boat builders tour because they're all boat builders,
Yeah, amazing. And I think what I loved about all of the interviews was the sense of calmness. There was just this really lovely sense of calm, focus, no bullshit. I'm a boat maker. That was what came through to me. It just spoke so beautifully loud and clear.
Yeah,
was
they're all
fun.
amazing. I mean, Annie, you did the interviews, didn't you? But every time I speak to, they're all just fascinating people as well. They've all got fascinating stories to tell, and they're all, just totally smashing it. And I think that's to be really celebrated.
I love the young
Mhm.
the young girl with the blue hair, the electrician. Was she
Sydney.
Sydney? So articulate. She was just a gorgeous kid, young woman, and just so, yeah, I was just like, oh, I can't imagine you doing anything else. You're exactly where you need to be. That was, yeah. So how did you go about sort of casting and finding these people, Annie?
Well, Belinda is the one who knows all about the yards in the UK.
Right.
So essentially, I'm quite green to the country. So I, like Belinda said, I kind of rocked up to the boatyard with my camera and my kit, and would sit people down for an interview. But a lot of it was Belinda reaching out to organizations that she knew of, and we would basically in advance say, "Hey, we're doing this tour. Do you want to be a part of it?" And then boatyards would either say yes or no. A lot of them would be really excited. Some of them you had to chase down. But no, we did everything from super yachts to a 3-person boatyard to a 1-woman boatyard run
Yeah,
entirely by herself.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, it was just fantastic. And I will say that everyone who I interacted with was incredibly warm and just very excited to talk about their craft.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. And Belinda, what's your business, or what do you do? I mean, tell us about your business. What do you do?
So, women in boat building is the core business is the community. So the reason that this tour happened is because as Annie said, we've got this amazing community of women that we know are working in boatyards globally, but mostly I know the women that are working in the boatyards in the UK. So we were able to talk to them and reach out to them and organize this tour. So as a community, we've got the mentoring program that we do. So we have experienced boat builders mentoring women that are starting in their career. So that's really been an amazing thing that we've been able to start this year. Lots of the women are working sort of, they're the only women in boatyards. So actually having a community of support is really important for their career development and confidence as well. It makes a difference feeling like you're part of something bigger.
Yeah. So explain that to me. So you've identified people who are working, and are you partnering an apprentice with a mentor, or how does that actually work? Because I think
basically
lots of boat builders watching this, listening to this, thinking, how can we make this happen? So how can we do this in Australia?
Okay, so basically it came about from one of the conversations I was having with Emily, who is someone I used to work with at Spirit. And in a previous role, this is why it's so interesting to have people at different ages entering boat building as a career. But in a previous job, she said that she found mentoring hugely beneficial to her professional career. And she said it would be really helpful to me, now I'm working in a boatyard, to have a mentor. And because it works, basically. And we know that from lots of other industries. So we set up the Women in Boat Building Mentoring Program. So the premise of it was that people early in their career get partnered, they apply and they get partnered with a woman that's a bit more further on in her career. It's a 10-month program, and they're encouraged to meet once a month. And it's not talking about how do I fix this, it's talking about actually you and your career progression, and any issues that you've got in the yard, and just having someone to talk through things with that's away from your work environment. And that's just really, really working. And not only is it working from a point of view with the mentors and the mentees and their relationships, we've spent a lot of time partnering them and getting the pairings right. The mentors then have a group, so the mentors also meet up at least once a month. I think they're meeting up a lot more, so they are also getting support within their mentoring, and that's just reinforcing the whole community feel, and it's just sharing knowledge and sharing experience and passing it on and supporting each other.
Would you look at expanding to Australia?
We could totally do a Women in Boat Building Australian mentoring program. That would be amazing.
I think we need to do that. I think we need to do one via SWS, and we'll talk offline. Yeah. But I think we do. And now the light is coming up. When we first, Dawn breaks very quickly in Costa Rica. I
It
can't.
does.
It looks like it's practically lunchtime now. But explain for us where you are right now, Annie. So
Yeah.
we glossed over it really quick. So you were a successful candidate to get a year's fellowship, and your fellowship means that you must travel outside of the US for an entire year. Damn, that sounds hard. But what a great
It's pretty dreamy. It's pretty nice.
dreamy. So you went to the UK and now you're in Costa Rica. And tell us about where you are in Costa Rica and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm currently at the Sail Cargo Estilo Verde boatyard, which essentially is this organization that is trying to create a sustainable shipping fleet. So as we all know, the shipping industry connects pretty much 90% of all of our goods, but it's quite a dirty industry. And what the people here are doing is building a wooden boat from the ground up using sustainable materials, replacing 5 trees for every 1 tree sawn, and really caring for them. And they take on, shipwrights, and they're building this massive container ship to actually take TCUs, which is a huge part of, efficient shipping, getting these TCUs onto trains, onto trucks to be able to transport goods. But it will be powered entirely by sail. There's no fossil fuel going into this production, pretty much. And I'm here to help with the video work. And this is part of my exploration of my fellowship. So I'll be here for about 2 months in the Costa Rica area.
Incredible. So the films that they're making, is that how is this project being funded? Is the content part of a funding strategy, or?
Yes, I believe so. They're basically investor funded, and I'm quite new to the yard, so I don't know if I can speak fully to their funding, but a big part of attracting more donors and more investors is media. So that's kind of where I come in.
And how many boats are they building, and what size are the vessels, and how many people are in this?
They are, yeah, so on an active yard, when they're full swing building, they've got about 20 people. And we're too far away, it's over there, but the ship is quite massive. I want to say it's like 100 meters or more. It's big. I can get you the exact statistics on the website, but they currently have one vessel in operation that is doing runs between the Atlantic and the Caribbean, though that vessel, I believe, was purchased, and so this is their first completely home built vessel. But it's high quality craftsmanship. These shipwrights really know what they're doing, and it's impressive to see in person just how massive this boat is.
And how many women are on site there?
Right now we have 3, but it fluctuates as people come in and out. So right now the gender
there, haven't you?
Clementine, yes.
Yeah,
she was from the Women in Boat Building series, so she's here too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
She's one of our mentors.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but no, it's been quite lovely. But yeah, full swing, they have around 20, and it just depends on basically which boat builders come on for which part of the process, whether that be planking or putting down bilges. They work kind of in stages, so depending on who's around.
And are these boats, I mean, how will they be sail powered the whole time? Do they have
Yes
solar as well? Do they have battery mechanisms? I mean, what happens when the wind stops?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I still need to investigate as part of my time here. But I do know that one of the points about doing sail cargo is you really pick cargo that won't spoil if there's a week difference, right? Because of the wind. So they're thinking about things like coffee and hard goods that people will pay a little bit more for because the quality won't really change within an extra couple days.
Yeah, so it's a value add to that product, I guess, in the value chain. Super interesting.
Yeah,
and
this is
where to for you after Costa Rica?
Yeah, so I've just put together, I'm quite excited. I'll be going to later in the year, I'll be going to Indonesia. And there's a really cool group of women there called Coral Catch, essentially, where they work with young Indonesian women in the Gili Island chain to do 9-week certifications in scuba diving and coral restoration. And they have a 100% success rate of feeding young women, mostly in their 20s, into the blue economy and conservation in the maritime industry. So I'll be joining them for 4-ish weeks or so. And then after that, I'll be in Japan doing seaweed harvesting and tuna fishing. And the rest of my year, I kind of piece together as I go, as I reach out to new people or learn about new opportunities. So it's quite free form, but I'm very, very excited. It's
I
pretty
think
big. I get to be in Costa Rica.
Oh, amazing. Would love to check back in with you when you're in Indonesia and particularly in Japan. Have you been to Japan before? I think the fishing industry is overwhelming in Japan to actually visually see what comes out of how this is possibly sustainable. It's really enough to make you never want to eat fish again. It's just incredible. So I'll be very interested to see what you think about.
I will too.
Yeah, incredible. I'm trying to lure you back down to Australia. I'm trying to think of a project that will get you down here. And
I'd love it. I'd totally go to Australia.
Belinda, what are your hopes and dreams for the industry?
For the boat building industry, well, as I've said, our long-term aim for women in boat building is that it doesn't exist. So yeah, I think an industry where everyone is valued and respected and included is what we all want, isn't it? And where boat builders are.
Definitely. I'm doing some work at the moment with a university in Australia about girls in year 9 opening their eyes to the opportunity of trades. Year 9 is when in Australia you're generally about sort of 14 or 15. Is that something, are you looking to sort of partner with universities or with, I don't know what you would sort of, we call them TAFEs here, that are sort of more geared towards the sort of apprenticeships. Is that something you're looking to sort of expand into the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole skill shortage globally for all these practical skills is partly due to the fact that schools have not put enough value on making and building. And I think as humans, we get so much joy and out of making, and it's such an incredibly important craft, and actually empowering young women and to enable them to have a career in building boats, and it's not just building the boats, it's the rigging, and it's the the engineering and the electrical side, and actually seeing the value and the joy that they can get from that is hugely important. So yes, there needs to be more outreach to schools to normalize it and to share what an amazing career they could have in this industry.
I loved hearing from the ladies making the covers in the film that came out last week, and just being so excited to be able to make the biggest boat cover that she'd ever made. But what I thought was really interesting, what she sort of said that she loved, and this is was the idea of making something, thinking about it, designing it, thinking about it being 2D, but then actually making something that was 3D. And the reward that you get from making something was really beautiful. I really thought that was a fabulous comment.
Yeah, it is. It's using your hands and creating, and it's an amazing thing to be able to do.
And passion for, we'll wind up just by talking about your passion for sailing. What do you love sailing yourself? And where do you love sailing?
I've got several boats, obviously. Who doesn't? You never have enough boats. Just bought one yesterday.
What did you buy yesterday?
I'm really excited about my new boat. We bought like a little picnic boat. It's a little Cornish crabber. Because I've got a keel boat, and that's I race a keel boat. So I race it with 2 other women, and we take our racing very seriously.
What do you race? Your dinghy?
I've got a 23-foot keel boat. No, keel boat.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything that we could sleep on board, and so yes, we've bought a little Cornish crabber. So I want to just do more exploring, going up up the creeks, and we live in an amazing area. We've got the Walton backwaters. I want to sail around Horsey Island and to go and see the seals and actually be able to camp out. So it's not a big yacht. It's just like a little 22-footer, but it's, you know, got a little thing I can boil my kettle on, and yeah, I'm just excited. It's like a picnic sort of camping boat. So
And
really excited about that.
When was it built, and what's it built out of?
Oh, I hate to say it, I've cheated. It's not wooden at all. It was built in 2010. Sorry.
No, that's quite okay.
It's gaff rigged.
So funny.
Shame on you, Belinda.
I know. You know what? I have massive guilt that I've gone and bought this and got, yeah, being who I am, I've gone and bought a GRP boat. It's built in 2010, so it's quite new, but it's got enough varnishing on the spars to keep me going for a couple of days. But yeah, my time will come with a wooden boat when I've got a little bit more time on my hands, but I'm afraid I've gone for the
yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And what about you? What about you, Annie? What are your sailing preferences?
Yeah, I'm not as much of a sailor. I've done small sailing in high school, but mostly power boating is it's more what goes on in my end of the Pacific Northwest and in my family. So we have a little 28-foot North Pacific that's about this far across. So it, you know, it doesn't handle well unless you're straight on, which is good to know. But I have spent a lot of time up in the San Juan Island chain where I'm from. It's just this beautiful island, really small community, and you can get up into the Inside Passage, and there's just fjords and orca whales and bears, and it's too good to talk about. It's just so gorgeous up there. So that's what I do. Yeah.
And you're making another film about a voyage that you did with 3 other girls. So it was three other women. It was all of my buddies from college, pretty much. Yeah. But we last summer, or in the summer of 2022, we took our little 28-foot boat essentially up the Inside Passage, and we were following the voyage of an old Canadian sea captain who's largely been overlooked, though her book is published, and it's a lovely read. I would recommend it to everyone. It's called The Curve of Time. But essentially, we spent 2 months, the 4 of us, packed in like sardines on this little boat, going up through rapids and seeing orcas and exploring all these places that she had written about so vividly 100 years ago. And it was kind of an exercise and a coming of age for all of us. We had just left school. We were really green to boating, so we learned a lot very quickly. Our anchor snapped, our battery died. We had a lot of, really rough weather days. And it was also really fascinating to see how the environment has really, really changed since her time 100 years ago. So it was also an exercise in sustainability, and then looking at, what does land conservation mean? Who's being excluded? What does shellfish farming look like in this industry now? But yeah, no, so we're still in the editing process of that, but we're hoping to get it out soon. Yeah. And see, this is the beautiful thing about sailing and going, out on the water, or, not sailing in your case in that situation, but the concept that stuff will go wrong, but you will be okay.
Something will always break. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's something, yeah, exactly. My sister's just bought this boat that we've both agreed is a project, and it's kind of like, what will break? Well, pretty much everything, and you will work it out. It will be okay. But look, it's just been an absolute joy to meet you both. I was just so inspired by what you're doing, Belinda, the network that you're creating, and Annie, the storytelling that you're placing around it. It just spoke so strongly to me of the future and the change that I desperately want to see, particularly, in the Southern Hemisphere, where water is such a huge aspect and part of our lives, and right across the South Pacific, there's just so much opportunity for women to get involved. And thank you for starting the conversation, or leading the conversation, being thought leaders, and really making stuff happen. It's just been a joy. So thank you very much for your time today.